On the morning of July 17, 1576, the luxurious halls of Villa Medici di Cafaggiolo lay under an eerie stillness. The usual hum of servants and soft footsteps through its marbled corridors was replaced by a hush that clung to the walls like fog. In the principal chambers, on a lavish bed draped in silk and velvet, lay the lifeless body of 33-year-old Eléonora de Garzia di Toledo, Grand Duchess of Tuscany. Her death would send ripples through the courts of Renaissance Europe, not only for the mystery that surrounded it but for the terrifying cruelty whispered behind closed doors. Official records would state sudden illness as the cause, but the oral histories and corridors of Florence would tell another tale, one soaked in blood, betrayal, and unimaginable punishment. Eléonora was no ordinary noblewoman. She was the daughter of Garcia Álvarez de Toledo, the Spanish viceroy of Naples and one of the most powerful men in the Mediterranean. Her marriage to Francesco I de Medici, the heir to the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, was meant to seal a powerful political alliance. At the time of her betrothal in 1560, she was only 17, sent from Naples to Florence in a grand procession, unaware that she was being delivered into the gilded cage of a tyrant. Her wedding to Francesco was a spectacular affair held at the Palazzo Pitti, attended by the crème de la crème of Italian and Spanish nobility. While the guests marveled at her beauty and grace, no one could predict that this radiant bride would meet such a dark and violent end. Francesco de Medici, though educated and immersed in the arts, was a man plagued by insecurities and violent tendencies. From the very beginning, his love for Eléonora was possessive and obsessive. He did not see her as a partner, but as an extension of his power, a prize to be controlled and silenced. He forbade her from speaking to men, even servants, without permission. Her letters were censored. Her outings were supervised. Over time, Eléonora became more prisoner than duchess. Despite this, she remained composed, playing the role expected of her, bearing children, hosting court events, smiling at public functions. For nearly a decade, she endured the suffocating rules and Francesco's unpredictable rages. It was in 1573 that her fate began to take a fateful turn. That year, a young poet and courtier named Pietro Bonaventure arrived in Florence. Educated, gentle, and full of admiration for literature and philosophy, Pietro was the antithesis of Francesco. Their paths crossed in the gardens of Palazzo Pitti during one of the rare moments Eléonora was allowed leisure time. What began as shared thoughts on Petrarch and Dante soon deepened into something much more dangerous. For Eléonora, Pietro offered not just romance but liberation, the hope of life beyond the velvet prison she had endured for years. Their secret meetings became the heartbeat of her hidden world. In the shade of rose gardens, between library shelves, they exchanged poems, kisses, and dreams of escape. For 3 years, their love remained undetected, or so they believed. But Francesco, ever paranoid and increasingly suspicious, had eyes and ears everywhere. One of Eléonora's trusted ladies-in-waiting betrayed her, lured by promises of gold and favor. In early 1576, Francesco uncovered the affair. What followed was not the rage of a betrayed husband but the wrath of a man whose obsession had been wounded. Pietro was immediately arrested, tortured until he confessed every word, every touch, every plan he had shared with Eléonora. After a brutal interrogation, he was executed in secret, his body thrown into the Arno River, denied even a burial. But Francesco was not satisfied. He believed Eléonora's betrayal demanded a punishment so symbolic, so horrifying, that it would serve as a lesson to all women of court. Since it was her mouth that had kissed another, spoken words of love, it would be her mouth that bore the punishment. On July 15, Francesco invited Eléonora to Villa Medici di Cafaggiolo under the pretense of a retreat to mend their marriage. Isolated and surrounded only by loyal guards and servants, Eléonora believed, perhaps naively, that forgiveness was possible. The dinner was served as usual. Francesco was calm, affectionate even. He asked about the children, reminisced about their wedding. Eléonora began to believe he had accepted the past and wished to move forward. But when they retired to their private chamber, the truth was revealed. Francesco presented her with the letters Pietro had written, each one carefully preserved. He made her read them aloud, savoring her humiliation. Then he gave the order. 2 loyal servants held her down while he retrieved instruments from a locked chest. What happened next is shrouded in both myth and horror. According to oral tradition, passed down through Florentine families and hushed whispers in noble halls, Francesco personally sewed his wife's mouth shut with silk thread while she remained conscious. Each stitch was said to be a declaration of her betrayal, a punishment designed to silence her voice forever. The official records say nothing of this. They state only that Eléonora died of a sudden fever during the night. But servants later claimed they heard muffled screams, saw bloodied linens being burned in the early morning, and noticed bruises on her face that no amount of makeup could hide. Her body, prepared for burial, had strange markings around the lips, covered with cosmetics and veils. No autopsy was permitted. Her funeral was grand, as befitted a Medici, but beneath the splendor lay a corpse robbed of dignity, and a soul brutally silenced. Part 4. In the weeks that followed, Florence buzzed with rumors. The once adored Duke began to draw suspicion and whispers. Some courtiers claimed Francesco spoke to himself in the halls, obsessing over betrayal, repeating verses about silence. His behavior grew erratic. He withdrew from court, trusting no one, not even his own brothers. In 1577, he married his longtime mistress Bianca Capello, but the relationship was poisoned by fear and paranoia. In 1587, Francesco died under mysterious circumstances, allegedly poisoned. Bianca died the same day, fueling rumors that they were both victims of a Medici family vendetta. Eléonora's tragic end remained largely unspoken in official circles, but among scholars and feminists of later generations, her story became a powerful symbol of how women were silenced in Renaissance Europe. The tale of the sewn mouth, whether true or symbolic, became a metaphor for the horrors of domestic violence inflicted by powerful men upon powerless women. The villa where she died became a place of ghost stories. Locals claimed to hear weeping during July nights, or see the shadow of a woman by the window, her mouth concealed behind a silk veil. Though her tomb bears no sign of her suffering, those who know history remember. Eléonora de Garzia de Toledo is remembered not just as a Grand Duchess, but as a martyr of power, jealousy, and the brutal consequences of female rebellion in a patriarchal world. Her life and death serve as a chilling reminder that even in the age of enlightenment and artistic genius, human cruelty thrived behind palace walls. In every whisper of her name, in every painting of silent noblewomen, her legacy lives on. Not in grandeur, but in the tragic truth of a woman who dared to seek love, and paid with her voice, her freedom, and ultimately her life. You've just witnessed one of the darkest punishments in history. But many more still lurk in the shadows. So if you dare, subscribe to Torture Vault, where every scream from the past still echoes.